Okay, hello everyone. I'm just going to be doing a very quick presentation of some trends that we currently see on the continent in context of real estate markets. And it's titled Real Estate as a Service, a New Way of Thinking of Africa's Real Estate Market. My name is Tayo Odunsi. I lead the team at Northcote Real Estate. We are a full service real estate company offering advisory, research, valuation, management, and brokerage services out of West Africa, primarily Nigeria and Ghana. The outline for my presentation, I'm going to be looking at real estate as a service. Like I said, it's a new and emerging trend that we're seeing on the continent. I'm going to start off by talking about how some contemporary uses of property differs from conventional real estate, and then I'll dive deep into 3 case studies. Essentially, we're talking about co-living, co-working, and share storage space, and I'll kind of round off with dark kitchens as also a new concept that we're seeing on the continent. At Northcote, where we start our presentations, we like to kind of start with a quote that just kind of talks about what we're saying. And Peter Drucker says, if you want something new, you have to stop doing something old. And that's essentially what real estate as a service is all about. So why real estate as a service? Okay, a service differs from a product or a good in the sense that it's quite different. It's less tangible. It's more fluid. The responsibility for maintenance and management is no longer on the buyer. It's still on the person that is selling, and that's how it differs from a product. Historically, when you buy property, commercial or residential, the responsibility for management and maintenance transfers to the buyer. But with this new trend and the things that are happening, we find that the occupier wants to doesn't want to take on as much responsibility, and this is why real estate as a service is emerging. But what exactly has necessitated this trend is the data. All right, developers, investors are seeing data showing that there's a movement, there's a shift. Okay, and what's this shift? All right, and that has led to, and they're seeing there's market saturation in some sectors of the real estate market, and obviously with improved technology, there's a change in consumer behavior, and if you want higher returns, higher yields, you would need to move on to the service side. And so it's this entire value chain that has necessitated bringing about real estate as a service, as against as a product. When we talk about real estate as a service, we're talking essentially about contemporary and conventional real estate. So contemporary real estate, conventional real estate classes are residential, office, hospitality, industrial. And what we're seeing is these are morphing into more contemporary forms like co-living as against typical residential, co-working as against typical office, short-lets, hotels as against hospitality, and of course maker labs, where people can come in, unrelated companies can come into the same space, use the same tools, use the same equipment, and churn out very great manufacturing products. And these are some things that we're seeing. This shift, this shared economy is coming into real estate. We've seen how it's proliferated, the transport scene with companies like Uber, and we're seeing these trends coming into real estate, and that's how real estate as a service has been birthed. The responsibility for maintenance, the responsibility for management in the office, in the office space markets, in the case of co-working, resides still with the operator, still with the developer, still with the co-working company. In case of hotels and shortlets, it's kind of like, it's not a hotel, it's not residential, but it's the service responsibility is retained by the owner of the asset. And these are some trends that we want to kind of discuss today. Okay. I'll kind of start off with co-living and co-working. So co-working obviously is about 2 decades old, where people have been sharing office space. There have been people sharing office space, and co-using space, but it's become a big trend over the last 10 years in Africa. Nigeria leads that space, in that there's so many co-working spaces that have proliferated, Lagos, Abuja, in the last, say, 3, 4, 5 years. And these trends are not they're not unfounded. Rents are typically charged in a year, 2 years upfront in standard leases. These are trends that have not been able to support the budding tech and general entrepreneurial scene in these locations. And that's where co-working comes in that it can slice and dice leases into as low as a week or even a day, and more flexible leasing, usage of space. Companies can be one man today, and within a month can be able to take up, even space for up to 10 people. So that kind of flexibility is what has created this demand and this surge in co-working spaces. And there's so many brands, across the continent. These are just some of the biggest brands, and even international brands like WeWork and Impact Hub have come into the continent and doing great stuff. We have lots of local brands as well, like Ventures Park, doing great stuff out of Nigeria, and so many other brands, doing a lot of great work in the co-working space. And this is beginning to change the face of the office market. And we even believe that with COVID-19, and people needing more flexible hours, more flexibility in terms of the space that they need, this can even create a bigger opportunity for these co-working operators. Similar to co-working, obviously, is co-living, all right? And typically, you would think someone needs to rent a standard apartment, take a yearly lease or at least a monthly lease, But again, it's a global village that we live in. There's lots of backpackers, there's lots of expatriates, coming in for a month, 2 months, 2 weeks, but needing to live in spaces, for a certain period of time. And this kind of demand, these drivers have essentially led to a growth in co-living. And from research that we've done, funding for co-living has significantly grown even on the continent. All right, a lot of people are looking into co-living because these are shorter leases, shorter spaces, and essentially the legal term for a co-living tenure is essentially a license. All right, so these also create some legal advantages, in the sense that someone that is in a co-living space does not enjoy some of the coverages, some of the benefits that a standard lease would accrue, and so evictions and things like that are significantly easier to handle in the case of co-living, because all you just have is a license. It's essentially treated like you're staying in a hotel. If you don't pay for one night, you're out the next day. So these are trends that we are seeing, and there's so many great operators operating out of the continent. In Nigeria, we have Split, we have Seed Space, in Abidjan, we have Somewhere Different in Egypt, Black Brick in South Africa, Sundesk in Morocco, Kwetu in Kenya, and so many other fantastic organizations doing a lot of great stuff, in co-living space. Again, remember, the idea between real estate as a service is that the responsibility for management, maintenance, everything essentially still resides with the developer, the investor, the operator. All right, the tenant or what have you just comes in and enjoys the real estate as a service, doesn't have a fiduciary responsibility over it as you would for a product that you bought and potentially need to hand over after a period of time. In co-living, co-working, just enjoy a license, they enjoy the right to use, and the service provider continues to operate and to maintain. These are trends that, in terms of market size, obviously compared to their counterparts in the conventional side of things, it's still very small, to be honest. But these are early days, and we believe that with a lot of things going on in our world today, these trends will only get stronger and we'll begin to enjoy more market size. Shared storage, that is the disruptor in the industrial space. And again, we're seeing a lot of traction for shared storage. So either two people would either own their own warehouse or lease, a bay or two of warehousing space. Now you can own a pallet space. You can even own or lease or take a license on just a shelf space of warehousing. But some big evolving uses are, as highlighted in this presentation, data centers, and document storage. Lots of financial institutions, even real estate institutions, requiring to store a lot of documents that, though may have expired in terms of shelf life within their premises, but they know that in 20, 30 years, some need can arise or require those documents. And so they just take them into, shared storage. Such a company does not have to invest in developing warehousing just to store documents. There's proliferation of shared storage or document storage companies across the continent. And these are some of the leading players, across the continent: Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and there's so many of them to mention. And this is yet another emerging trend that begins to help us as real estate practitioners to begin to think about how to better read the data, understand what people require, and then begin to provide the services that they really want, and in so doing, we're able to earn consistent and potentially higher yields, because that is why these companies essentially exist. Dark kitchens, that's the last the last session. That's the last idea I'll be sharing today. And dark kitchens, it's quite an interesting concept, all right, but it's again birthed out of the fact that restaurants, okay, and these trends actually had already commenced, before COVID-19. But it's interesting how the evolution of dark kitchens sits perfectly well, with the COVID-19 era, where there's a lot of thoughts on distancing technology, any form of technology or habit or mode of doing business that makes people be able to deliver their goods, their services without touch, without contact with the service providers and the users. So essentially, the concept of dark kitchens is where a restaurant can virtually and sell its food essentially, to the consumers without them coming in to get seated and served. Okay, so you order online, you don't know where the food is being made, but within a couple minutes, that's already predetermined. Your food, and your exact order is delivered to you. There are a lot of restaurants today across the continent and across the world that do not offer eating and dining facilities, but they do great food. Okay. Now, while these restaurants are very important to note, what's more important to realize is that these subsectors, so to say, only exist because of the logistic partners that exist that are stimulating this demand. So people like Uber Eats, Young Deliveries, Order In, all these delivery companies that have fantastic, supply chain, models and have, transportation side of things locked down. They have the infrastructure to take on your order, communicate that order to the restaurants, and then try and then get the food across to the user. These guys are the ones that have essentially been the backbone for this trend. Now, what you just need to begin to imagine is how this is beginning to revolutionize the entirety of the hospitality subsector, the retail market, how things can be brought from service providers or people that sell a good or service and get it to the end user without any contact. This is a game changer, in my opinion, and we're seeing it happen with dark kitchens. We're seeing it happen, in the e-commerce space, and this is going to be moving to other aspects of the economy that hitherto used to be done face to face. So these are just some trends that we thought to share with you today, on real estate as a service. It's always a great pleasure to share these thoughts. I remain Ty Odusi, CEO, Northcote Real Estate. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. God bless.